Hey, Evals stuff. So for the work I'm doing with Star Lab, we're trying to essentially build a substrate that serves as a substrate for an explicit geometry world model. We've done a good job. Got a workshop paper done in CVPR. The next step is really to turn that workshop paper into a full paper and submit it to something like WACV or SIGGRAPH for CVPR 2027, right? But before I even want to do that, or while I'm doing that, I want to actually have proper quantitative benchmarks. And to be honest, there aren't really that many quantitative benchmarks in terms of 4D Gaussian spotting. I could be wrong. My literature could just be bad in terms of my review. But in terms of like, oh, do they get the physics right? Not much I'm seeing, right? There's a couple ideas I've explored, I've been interested in, especially after CVPR. But in terms of just like simple stuff, like are they getting the partial differentiable equations and just some other algebra stuff right from the get go? I'm not really seeing a lot of that. So what I'm working for my paper is to get an eval benchmark going. And since it's not necessarily like a qualitative, like these are well-known solutions that's pretty easy to fact check. So right now I just fact check my work with Gaussian Flesh and Fizz Gaussian, another work in the same space, and see how well they do in terms of the different material laws. Like you can think of elasticity, stretch, plasticity, and all that. How well they do, and to be honest, they don't do that well. Like the physics isn't purely accurate. They do look correct, for given how correct a ficus tree that's rubber can look, but and this is the interesting part, they're not physically accurate. I think it's an interesting thing because when I first came into this work, I can't really remember why I necessarily chose to go the physics route. Because to be honest, right, a neural engine has to come into at some point. If you want a generalizable world model, there has to be some sort of neural engine that does the math. But then, how well does that neural engine actually do the math? And I think the reason I'm stuck on this question is because the different applications you have to think of. If you're stress testing a plane for Boeing, right? You want to have the math be correct. You want to have a simulator, a world model that can actually do a proper math. But if you want like games, then it's a really different situation. I think even when I was thinking about like the actual substrate, if I want to use like material point method, if I want to use PB, precision based material point method, there was a question of precision based material point method is actually it works, it scales pretty well, but the actual physics aren't that correct. They're more so for games. Whereas material point method is more correct. And I think that's something where it's like, oh, where does that like when do I really want to make that divergence? Like when do I want to jump ship? Because I'm still trying to do both, and it may come a time where doing both isn't the right move. Because when I think of this world model, and maybe it's childish, but I think purely in gaming applications. I even think about robotics that much. But then a big application of world models as they are right now in the infancy stage is robotics. And in robotics, you want the fixed physics to be fairly accurate. Do they have to be accurate to a T? I don't know. There comes another question of like, oh, is it a visual thing? Like, is the model just learning visually, and then it just needs some extra metrics? Because if it's just visual, then I personally think video-based world models may be the approach, right, with some extra stuff added upon it. But if it's like pure physics, I don't know. And that's the thing I'm still stuck at. I want to go the physics route. I just feel like it's a stronger route to go. I think that gives a better grounding in the long run and generalizes better. Because the thing about physics and just math, it compiles, right? So like one error in the first couple of steps is gonna compile to some messy stuff in like the nth step, right? So that's something I'm thinking about. Overall, I'm just happy to have some evals. I think it's good to have them because now I can start working on getting the full paper ready for WACV. With WACV, I don't know if I mentioned this in an earlier video, but there's kind of like two rounds. One round is around like end of June, the other is in end of August. Technically, you can submit to the first round of WACV, and then you could get rejected, no more submitting that paper. Or you can say, hey, just fix these stuff up, submit to round two. So I'm still worried because I don't know if I want to submit to round one and then maybe get rejected or maybe get a referral to round one, round two, or maybe just get in. Because if I get rejected, I don't really have a work that may be ready for WACV. Maybe the actual model, world model aspect, maybe. But then if I don't submit to round one, then I'm going in blind for round two, right? So it's a tricky thing, but we'll see. I think though, from all the comments I've gotten from the different reviews from both SIGGRAPH, which I didn't get into, and CVPR, which I did get into, the biggest thing this seems to be the quantitative evaluations. I think that's the biggest weakness of the paper. Um, so maybe that should be good enough. So I'll still think about it. I think right now, the evals aren't too hard to do. It's just to clean up some stuff and then improve the substance, look into how math is being done. Maybe something um, I I overlooked. Yeah, and then maybe I'll just do the June thing. I think there's a good content, right? It's good content, so um, it should get in hopefully. Also on that note, on the subject note, before I stop talking to about the subject and move on to model stuff in later videos, I think with the subject stuff I am conflicted because right now, in terms of solid objects or just elastic objects or plasticity, the subject does a really good job. We also have to think about fluid stuff like gas or liquid, and there's ways to go about it. I know this group from I want to say UCLA, maybe Ohio, had a paper on it. It worked pretty well, and maybe I could look into extending the associate there. But I think right now, and this is a concern I've had for a good amount of time, I'm not building assumption. I'm not building stuff that looks fancy. I'm trying to build a world model. Um, and I think the subject can be extended upon post proof of concept. So I don't think I'm going to explore like, oh, extending it and making sure the fluid stuff works well. If I have stuff I can just test now, it's like, okay, I can test this. Um, and then by August we have something that can actually scale. And I think that's a much easier thing. We say, okay, let's just extend this now, and then we can scale with more stuff versus spending June and July working on extending this subject for like just for it so it can look fancy. But I think that's where my head is at. Besides that, I have nothing else to say. So have a great day.